Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we have another gun gripe episode for you. Okay, this one, it's taken us a little bit of time to get to because there's been a lot of things going on. I know a lot of folks have really had the death of Mr. George Floyd on their mind, and all of us are very upset about that. And it's very tragic what happened. We do have a separate gun gripe on that particular incident if you'd like to hear our thoughts on that. Of course, we don't agree with Mr. Floyd's death, but we're not going to get into that here. But we are going to talk about Breonna Taylor. Okay, this was another police-related shooting that occurred, a few weeks ago, and it's very tragic. And Miss Taylor was killed by the police as a result. She was an EMT in Louisville, and this happened in Louisville, Kentucky. And we're going to dive into this a little bit. And I really want this video to be a big lesson on no-knock warrants, and also a big lesson on the dangers of red flag laws. And, this nanny state that we seem to have developed as a country, right, where people are encouraged to tell on their neighbors, or people are encouraged to be Karens and talk about this person, that person, and then people get riled up, and then the cops get called, and it's this whole big to-do, right? So there's a lot of dangers of red flag laws. And now this is not a red flag incident, but it's kind of along those same veins, right? Where some phantom court does something, people show up, and people start shooting, okay? Now there's some facts behind this that we'll discuss a little bit, but the bottom line is Miss Taylor was innocent and was killed by the police, all right? So that's the kind of big takeaway here. Now her boyfriend, what was his name? Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker shot at the police, okay? Preemptively shot at the police, fired a shot, and apparently wounded a police officer, and then, of course, the police returned fire, and Miss Taylor was killed as a result. No-knock warrants are dangerous because they get civilians and police killed alike, and it's very dangerous for both parties involved. The big issue with no-knock warrants is sometimes they get the wrong address. Yep. Sometimes they get bad information. Sometimes the people they're looking, these are not the droids you're looking for. They're not actually there, right? The people that they're looking for aren't even at that place, right? So it kind of goes back to that whole David Koresh syndrome with Waco, okay? Just because somebody in the household is accused of a crime, does that mean that it gives you the right to burn down the whole house with women, kids, and everybody just because one person might have committed a crime? Not even convicted or proven to have committed a crime, just was suspected of committing a crime.
Absolutely.
That's the issue. So it's sort of that David Koresh syndrome where, okay, maybe someone might have been in that apartment that possibly really did commit a crime, but does that make Miss Taylor's life forfeit just because someone in there was just allegedly accused of committing a crime? That's the issue.
Yep. And the big issue with the no-knocks is that, like Eric said, bad information. I mean, the whole Karen syndrome and this victim mentality, it's like, I think they're peddling drugs out of there, and they get enough people that think the same thing. Oh yeah, well, they might be, yeah, I think it's that apartment right there. I mean, that's not enough to go on. And the whole no-knock thing, you've got ununiformed undercover officers most of the time. These people are not in uniform. And per most laws, they have to identify themselves. And Kentucky has a stand your ground law, just like we have in Georgia, just like they have in Florida and numerous other states around the country. But the stand your ground is not applicable to police entering your home if they announce themselves beforehand. And there are numerous witnesses in this case where they say the police did not announce themselves. But I was just discussing with Eric earlier, you're asleep in your bed, okay? I live near train tracks. So if a train goes by at 3 o'clock in the morning, I do not hear it. I've gotten so used to it. I get used to all these loud sounds. And if you're in a big city and whatnot, you've got the hustle and bustle. You've got subways rolling along or whatever, or Amtrak and stuff rolling along. You got all this racket. Are you really going to hear somebody yelling at your door? No, you're going to hear the door slam open, and then you're waking up and you're trying to orient yourself to deal with whatever situation is there. I mean, you're startled awake and you're trying to figure out what's going on.
Dude, seriously. I mean, I could be laying in my bed, and if somebody came up to my front door with a megaphone, and I'm not the loudest megaphone you could possibly think of, right? And went to my front door, police search warrant. I'm talking loud, deafeningly loud. I still wouldn't hear it. I sleep
Dude.
like a freaking rock.
Same here.
So I think, come on, man. You know, you're going to knock on someone's door at 3 o'clock in the morning, announce yourself, and assume that just because you kicked in the door that, well, I did the regulatory rigmarole, I went through the motions of announcing myself. That's not good enough. I mean, what would any reasonable person do if their door was kicked in the middle of the night or at 3 o'clock in the morning by a stranger, and you may not have heard them announce themselves as law enforcement? You're going to protect your property, and that's why these no-knock warrants are really scary, and they're dangerous both for law enforcement and for civilians, because the law enforcement usually gets the first brunt. I mean, in this case, they were shot at first. Now, you know, it's unfortunate that Miss Taylor died, and, you know, she's basically one of the good guys. You know, she was EMT, doing her thing out there trying to help people, trying to make a living, working hard in her community, and it's very tragic. And of course, people get really angry when they hear these things. A very similar situation occurred with Duncan Limp, and we, of course, know how that wound up happening. You know, he was gunned down in his house, and a similar type of situation. So I just will implore people when all of these things occur to definitely do the research and look at all the facts, right? Look at everything that happened, because with these situations, you're always going to have three sides of every story. Okay, one side, one party side, the other party side, and then the middle story is kind of the facts, like where the facts lie and what happened, right? I certainly do not agree with Miss Taylor dying as a result of a no-knock warrant. It's very tragic, especially that she's an EMT. That is just so horrible. When I read about it, I was angry. I had to take a minute. I was mad because, you know, these things that reinforce the stereotypes that people have against police. That is one of the dangers of this situation, right? You know, anytime something happens that sort of reinforces a negative stereotype, you can't help but think, okay, well, are all police just this incompetent, or are people just committing crimes and this is happening? I mean, so what ended up happening to lead up to these circumstances and to make these things happen, right? So, I mean, the police don't just knock on random doors for random reasons and shoot random people for no reason, right? They had to have been there for some reason to begin with. So, you know, I really hate that Miss Taylor was killed, and it really makes me angry, and she's innocent, and I hate that. I hate to see innocent people die. But, you know, people commit crimes, they get in trouble, and the police get involved, and the police have a history of doing some really crappy things to people, and it's scary, you know. I wish there was a better answer, guys. I really did, you know. It's just, it's one of those situations. If you commit some form of crime, now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm a statist or that I support the police wholeheartedly. Like, yeah, I support good police, but I don't support crappy people doing bad things and making bad decisions and getting away with it with complete immunity. I don't support that either. So I kind of just look at things objectively, and I try to look at the facts and look at things for what they are and how they happen, right? And it's not an easy job. I will just say that, you know, the police probably don't have a very easy job, but at the end of the day, I don't agree with a lot of laws. I think that there are many things that are laws that shouldn't be laws, okay? But it doesn't change the fact that a jackboot might kick in your door and shoot you over it either. So while I don't like it, and while I think it's dumb that a lot of these laws exist and that we have to deal with them in the way that we do, and that there's so much you know, regulatory headache in terms of the way that laws are enforced and the way that they're out there and the fact that they even exist in the first place, I don't agree with that, and I don't like it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that I'm going to go out looking for an excuse to break those laws to get into an encounter with the police where I might have to be put in a situation where I might be in a life and death situation over something that shouldn't be a law in the first place. So that's part of my difficulty in this thing too, is that, yeah, a lot of these laws that are being broken probably shouldn't be laws in the first place. I get that. But it doesn't change the fact that if you commit a crime, they're going to have the immunity to come in and do some heinous crap. And I don't agree with it, and I hate it, and it drives me nuts. But that's the game we have to play. Like, it's sort of a game that, I mean, you literally have to play the game, right? Americans are great at playing the game. Like, we wrote the book on rabble rousing and breaking laws, right? I mean, it's what.
That's not how you fight a war.
It's what we do. Like, we are the kind of people that go, oh, a manual?
Bah.
We don't read the manual. We don't follow the instructions. We don't follow the map. We don't listen to orders. Americans do things in their own way, okay? So if we hate these laws and we hate the people that are putting the laws in place and we hate that these laws are getting passed, right? Then we need to elect people that aren't going to, write crappy bills and get crappy laws passed. That's part of the issue, right? Is not electing these morons in the first place, okay? And then more laws are not going to make the situation better. Oh, well, this isn't working, so let's make more laws. That's part of the issue. Is we are a nation of so many federal and state laws that there's entire books written on all of the code and all of the random things that go into our legal system, not only from a standpoint of how you can be, accused of a crime and brought up on charges on a crime, but how you have to follow and enforce said laws. The police have certain rules that they have to follow as well in the enforcement of those laws. And it seems that they tend to get quite a free pass when it comes to doing the wrong thing. If we were to make a mistake and do something wrong, you better believe, if your window tint is 0.5% more than it's supposed to be, we're going to pull you over and give you a ticket. If you're going 10 miles an hour over what that number on the sign says, we're going to pull you over. But the minute they screw up, they want to cover for each other. It's the buddy-buddy system. Oh, it's okay. I saw it. Blah, blah, blah. And so it's always that good old boy setup when it comes to, we got to cover for our buddies.
Destroying evidence, falsifying information. It's happened before.
Right. And that is the issue, is in their world, if they kill somebody, whether by mistake or not, it's just the collateral damage of doing the job. But when you commit a minor offense that shouldn't even be a law in the first place, they're going to throw you against the wall.
And they will paint you in the worst light possible. And the media will be on their side. All right, so one of the big issues I have with the whole no-knock thing is we've had some issues or incidents that happened close to home, all right? And one of them involved an infant several years back. No-knock warrant, announced themselves, busted the door in, threw a flashbang or some other like incendiary grenade inside the home, and it landed in a baby's crib and scarred this baby for life. Burned half a little face off. Just awful, awful stuff. And, an elderly woman, let's see, I think she was in her 90s. She fired one shot into the ceiling, when people were breaking into her house. And that's what she thought. She thought she was being burglarized, so she, bang, and then the cop shot her and killed her. What's the whole point of, knowing your target and what's beyond it?
Well, not only that, but you have the ability to face your accuser. So the whole idea, if you're being accused of a crime, you're supposed to get your day in court. You're supposed to be judged by a jury of your peers and all that happy business. And they've got to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that you are, in fact, guilty of a crime. They have to prove you're guilty until proven innocent.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
But if someone kicks in your door and shoots you before you ever have your day in court, well, then what justice is that? That's not justice. That's just like SS level Nazi brown shirt crap. Yep. That's what the brown shirts did. They're a political opponent, kick in their door, drag them off, and you never see them again.
Well, it was easy after they started confiscating guns from everybody, back then.
But see, that's the dangers of this stuff. And I don't want to get into this talk in this particular video, but that's why I'm so against red flag laws, because it puts that kind of Karen ability into people's hands. We saw that person with a gun case. We think they're a threat. And as long as they can convince some phantom court that you're a threat, then they're going to send the jackboots to your house to come confiscate your guns.
They've got guns, and I see cars over there all the time. I think they're peddling drugs. That's what all this is about. The majority of not red flag. Listen to me, I'm losing track of what we're talking about here. The majority of these no-knock cases are narcotics related, drug related. Okay, yeah, sure. Drugs, they could be a problem, but is it a weed that somebody's growing? A plant that somebody's growing? Where there are no victims whatsoever of that so-called criminal activity? I'm
telling you.
Who cares?
What a lot of it has to do with is these freaking pharmaceutical companies. The big pharma, they don't want natural remedies out there. because they want to be able to have a monopoly on, basically all the pills and drugs or things that you might need. Oh, well, yeah, they want to keep you doped up. They just want it to be their dope. That you have to go see their doctors and you have to go through this whole process and you got to spend money. And of course, it's all, legal because it's all within the system. They don't want a natural remedy that has little to no side effects or anything like that. We're not going to go down that vein of this rabbit hole about whether or not, drugs are okay, because we don't want it to be that talk. But it is very unfortunate that Miss Taylor lost her life over this situation, and I hope the family can find peace. And we wanted to use our platform to let people know that these things occur, okay? And it's important for people to remember situations like Taylor, situations like Limp, situations like all of this stuff that is going on is just very, very terrible. Mr. Floyd's passing, all of these things are because a system is being weaponized against us, okay? A group of people within our society is being weaponized against us legally through the guise of enforcing laws and the guise of control and the guise of public safety. But that's not the reality of the situation, okay? It's very, very scary the way that this country has gone in terms of the militarization of the police force and the ability of the police force to be used as a weapon against people under the guise of enforcing laws. If you have a nation that has thousands and thousands and thousands of laws, and they dream up thousands of ways that they can send the jackboots to kick in your door in the middle of the night, well then how do you ever really know what you've done wrong? It's not like they're going to say, police, search warrant, we think there's drugs in there, we know you're in there, whatever. Or they're going to go out there on a bullhorn and say, come out. No, you're not going to know why they're there. And they could come up with any number of reasons to be at your front door, and you'll never even know. Because you're not going to hear them say anything. All you're going to hear is someone trying to crash through your door. You're going to think they're the bad guy. You're going to shoot at them. They're going to shoot back. There's probably going to be more of them than you, and they're going to kill you. And you're never going to know why you died. You're never going to know what the reason was. And that's what's so scary about it. You could be a perfectly good, law-abiding person, and they just transposed a number on a form and got the wrong house. You have nothing to do with the investigation or the situation or any of that. Yep. There's been situations where they've just simply had the wrong house.
Another case of you losing something valuable to you, up to and including your life, because of the actions of others.
Right.
One of the things I was reading about the no-knock warrants is, and this seems weird to me. I was looking some statistics up, but 60% of all no-knock warrants are wrong. 60%. So you're only getting it right you're only getting it right less than half the time. You're at the right house that, is actually, harboring criminals and criminal activity, okay, whatever you want to call it, growing plants, all right, whatever the case is. But you're right less than half the time, and this is still a thing? No, absolutely not. So there definitely needs to be some look into the validity of no-knocks. I mean, some police say, oh, well, they're very important to us. And then others say, I don't want to put my officers in that situation and risk our constituency, our citizenship, our citizens in our area.
It really does depend on the jurisdiction of where these things occur, because
jurisdiction is what.
Certain states, and certain jurisdictions may go, what, this no-knock thing, that's sketchy, we're not doing that. And then some places they're like, oh yeah, just kick in the door, I mean, like in New York, they issue shotguns and pistols and patrol rifles and pistols, but then at the end of the shift, the cops have to go turn them back into some locker at the armory. They don't even get to take them home. So, what the heck?
Yep.
I mean, and in some situations, the police are unarmed, depending on what neighborhood they go to. I mean, gosh, it's so sketchy to think being a cop is dangerous, okay? Now, we're not going to refute the fact that especially right now, being in the line of police work is a sketchy business. It's not, safe, right? I get that. But being a citizen, just trying to live about your everyday life, shouldn't be a crime. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to worry just existing that someone's going to get the wrong number on my house and kick in the door, and then there's going to be a gunfight ensuing over something that could have been avoided because of their incompetence.
Well, remember that these things have to be approved by higher ups in the police force. So how many times do you get a piece of paper on your desk and it's just like, whatever. I mean, I'm just speculating. I mean, that's worst case scenario. Somebody just says, okay, whatever, just go. To justify a no-knock entry, an officer must have a reasonable suspicion that knocking and announcing his or her presence under the particular circumstances would be dangerous or futile or inhibit the effective investigation of the crime through the destruction of evidence. To obtain a no-knock search warrant, an officer must obtain prior approval from a lieutenant or above. Okay, so reasonable suspicion that knocking or announcing his or her presence under particular circumstances would be dangerous or futile.
Well, the idea is that they want the element of surprise.
They do.
They want to be able to go, all right, we caught them with their pants down, we caught them with the drugs out on the table, whatever. I understand the premise of why you would do it from a tactics standpoint, because, yeah, you want to get the drop on them, you want to surprise them. But, man, 3 o'clock in the morning, you knock on someone's door and kick it in, you're going to get shot at. I mean, that if you're a criminal and you knock on someone's door in the middle of the night, you should assume that someone in there is probably going to shoot at you. Okay, so
especially here in the United States. I mean, the particular article, the statistics, it said that 4 out of 10 American homes have guns in them. I think we're probably a little bit higher than that, but
it's higher than that.
No-knock warrants, in my opinion, it's just not good here in the United States. I mean, we have an armed populace, not a smart idea. Now, if you're a communist nation or you're North Korea, I think no-knock warrants are probably okay there, right? Because, I mean, there's no one to oppose your entry. They just barge on in and there you go.
Well, the fact of the matter is that there's no easy answer to this situation. I wish I had all the answers. I wish I knew. I mean, I sympathize with both sides of the equation. I get it. I understand the law enforcement has a difficult job to do, and it ain't easy. Okay, I understand that. And I also understand that, civilians should not have to deal with these jackboots kicking in their doors and killing them in the middle of the night over bullcrap, over something that, okay, if the crime that is allegedly being committed, well, it's not punishable by death anyway. So why would you shoot somebody over some bullcrap drug charge anyway? I mean, that's the thing. Like, you're presenting a situation that bumps up the escalation of force in a way that can be avoided. I mean, I guess that's kind of the whole issue there. Why not just go up to them at a grocery store? Mm-hmm. You know who they are. You got drug people that watch them, task interdiction people, put a man on them, watch them, figure out their patterns, and go deal with them when they're dropping kids off at school or when they're at the grocery store. You walk up and you go, we need to talk. And you have that talk. What are they going to do? What are they going to do in the middle of a grocery store that they would do in the middle of their house at 3 o'clock in the morning? I mean, I understand having the drop, but there's got to be a smarter way to deal with it than doing that. It'll end up getting a lot less people hurt. I hope that Miss Taylor's family finds some peace with this situation. It's really terrible. I really hated to hear this. I wanted to talk about it. I thought it would be a good gun gripe. Arm yourselves, guys. Protect yourselves. Protect your communities. Protect each other. Do the best you can. Try to be smart about things. Try to identify. It goes back to those rules of gun ownership when it comes to, shooting a gun. Knowing the target and what's beyond it. If you are going to shoot at something. Look, invest in a good weapons light. A good flashlight on your handgun or your carbine or something. If you are going to engage a target inside of your home, if it's someone who has entered your home, make sure you can properly identify them. And the same thing goes for police. If the police knock in a door and they don't have weapons lights, well, how can they definitively say it was a good shoot if they didn't even have a light on their weapon to properly identify the target? Just think about that for a bit.
Throwing flashbangs indiscriminately?
Throwing a flashbang indiscriminately. How can you really assume that something in there is that much of a threat where you need to throw a flashbang in a baby's crib? You must be able to identify the threat before you can even know that they're a threat in the first place. So This should be a lesson against no-knock warrants, against red flag laws, but also a lesson in tactics. Make sure you have a quality weapons light and that you just take that split second to identify something positively before you squeeze the trigger. That round is not coming back, guys. When you squeeze that trigger and that round leaves that gun, you own that round until it stops. And it ain't going to care what it hits. And you own that round until it stops. So just keep that in mind. It's a big responsibility to have that ability to protect yourself in your hands, but it's also you're your brother's keeper. You got to make sure. I mean, now when those police opened fire and hit Miss Taylor 8 times, did they know every time they squeezed the trigger where that round would go 8 times? Or did they fire indiscriminately into the residence? I mean, that's sketchy.
The bad part about this whole situation with no-knock warrants, the negative light on police, gun owners, stand your ground laws, the Second Amendment, everything, is that common, everyday, Joe Blow American citizen is always stuck in the middle of everything. So we don't want drugs in our neighborhoods. Like, I don't want some meth house down the block from me ruining the livelihoods of people all around me and ruining my community. No, but I don't worry about grass too much, okay? I mean, I think a lot of people don't worry too much about marijuana, all right? But meth, crack houses, all that kind of stuff, we don't want that. But how you got cops on one side, then you got drug dealers and criminals on the other side, and we're always just in the middle of this battle. It's like the drug war. Common everyday citizens always right in the middle of this crap.
And Miss Taylor was certainly on the wrong end of that situation.
Oh, absolutely.
And
but
she didn't deserve to die, guys. That's terrible.
It's terrible. It's a tough subject. I mean, for sure, it really is. But
especially coming from somebody that looks like me. Okay, I'll acknowledge that. I get that, okay? If there's somebody watching this video and they're like, well, what's this white guy going to tell me about anything about the way I need to do things? Look, don't take it from me. That's fine. But if you do take something from me, arm yourself, okay? I don't care who you are, what your line of thinking is, what background you come from. We can all agree we need to arm ourselves and protect our communities no matter who you are. And that's a universal message I've always preached in my videos, and I will continue to until y'all listen to me and arm yourselves. And even when you do, I'm still going to...
Arm yourself some more.
You're going to arm yourself some more. Look, it's just important, guys. Firearms are the great equalizer, and they do allow us to keep everyone on a level playing field, and I very much support that idea of us all being equal, free and equal. So, look, guys, have a great day. I know this is a hard subject, and we've got lots of gun videos that have been coming out. I know some people aren't a fan of the gripes just because they are a little bit politically charged, but understand that we care greatly about our communities and the people in it, and we really try to look at this from a fair situation, try to look at the facts from both sides, and try to get to the bottom of what is going on in these situations, and try to understand where both sides are coming from. But I agree with Chad that somewhere in the middle, there's the truth. And that's what we all really want objectively, is to have the truth. We want justice, and we want truth, and we want to be free. And our freedom does not end where someone's fear begins. And that's just the bottom line, right? Benjamin Franklin, when he warned us, when our nation was brand new, after we had just signed the Declaration of Independence, he said, it's our republic if we can keep it. And he's right. Freedom is a responsibility. Freedom is delicate. Right? We have to honor freedom a little bit from time to time. We gotta kind of pray at the altar of freedom every now and then. It requires a bit of sacrifice on our parts. Freedom is delicate, and it requires responsibility, and it requires good people to do the right thing and to want to do the right thing by their fellow man. So I think that's the situation that we have to think about here. Don't be a Karen, don't be a snitch. Nobody likes a snitch because it gets people like Miss Taylor killed, and we certainly don't want that. So, guys, have a great day. Again, to the family, I hope you find peace. I know it's really, really hard, and I know the EMT community's affected greatly by her passing, and horrible situation. We definitely don't want mistakes to happen, and we want to make sure our people are safe. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Many more gun videos on the way. We've got so much stuff coming. Those of you who purchase t-shirts on Ballistic Ink, like the one he's wearing and I'm wearing, thank you so very much for the support. Also, those of you who like to purchase man cans, we've got some great man cans for sale over on the website. Make sure you check them out. We really appreciate your support. Also, quick moment, thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for believing in what we do and seeing value in our efforts and supporting us. Have a great day. Stay free, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.